So we can call the Charter Review Commission meeting to order at 6:02. And present are Harriet Applegate, Graham Ball, Roland Anglin, Jonathan Ciesla, Drew Herzig, and myself, Linda Strejewski. I know that Craig is not going to be here, and Stephanie said she was going to be here a few minutes late.
He was right behind us on the stairs.
He went to the restroom.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So
Well, that's okay then.
we'll just wait a minute for him to join us.
I feel like I'm in his seat.
And Linda, did
You want
you hear the most recent report? Is that on the Dropbox or no, not yet?
I didn't put it in the Dropbox. I emailed it.
Did you?
Mhm.
All right. Got it. Yeah, that's what I'm about to do. I'll throw it in the Dropbox, then I can pull it up. You sent it 5 hours ago. All right.
Yeah, I did do some work on it later in the afternoon, but I added to the chart of the changes the additional column that Jonathan suggested to show which bucket each item was in.
So, and just for clarity, one of my suggestions was we've got the chart of changes, which we had from the previous. And what's interesting is, well, we also know which sections are being touched by the different amendments. So Linda was able to do it already, but it was, if you had a column so you could see the amendments, you would see if there was overlap or, but you would see, oh, this is affecting Amendment 1, this is Amendment 2, and you would see the changes in correlation with the buckets.
All right, so Guy is here. So we will call the meeting to order. And we don't have minutes to approve yet, so we'll defer that. As you can see, we have an overlapping meeting going on now between the Charter Review Commission and the Civil Service Commission. So we're happy to see Judy Miles and Hugh Weinberg here from the Civil Service Commission. So we appreciate you coming to visit us. And the purpose for meeting with you is to receive any comments you care to give us on our proposed changes to the charter that relate to the salary adjustments for council and the mayor.
So thank you for accommodating us on such short notice at the top of your meeting. Hugh and I have now had a chance to talk about it twice, with our third commissioner joining us at our meeting that convened at 5:30. I'm gonna just give my thoughts, and then Hugh, I want you to weigh in. But I think our consensus was we'd rather not have that recommendation, but we understand that it's something you inherited from the last iteration of the commission, and there's, you know, some pluses to that. We're concerned, I think, mostly with the appearance that civil service has no background. I mean, the three commissioners now, that's not what we do professionally for our day jobs or our former day jobs. But also, would we be the right body, no matter who was constituting the commission? And would it be perceived as having become political, when right now we only deal with civil service employees in the safety forces, and only for entry-level hiring and promotional testing, review and certification of those lists that come out of the testing process? Would it be perceived by the public as council punting to civil service to sort of shield themselves from any scrutiny or criticism of any proposed increases for council or the mayor?
I mean, it would shift the political onus from them to us, and then retake the political heat. And I don't know if we should be in that position, given that we pass on civil service, very objective civil service qualifications that that can be quantified. I mean, the salaries can be quantified, but there's going to be a lot of public interest in those. And if the salaries are too high for the public's taste, then we'll take the heat. I mean, you know, I'm a big boy, I can take a little heat, but I'm not sure that that's the proper role for the Civil Service Commission. And we are, in fact, a mayoral appointed agency, and so there's a separation of powers question, I think. But as I said earlier, if we're given this additional responsibility, we'll take it on. I would, if we do, we most certainly would need clarification about process. I don't know if that would go in the charter. I doubt it would. But in terms of the determination of the salary the level of the salaries, how's that done and passed on to us? And then we pass it back. I mean, just, you know, process is obviously important, especially since these decisions will be publicly scrutinized.
So the language that we have proposed is that the Civil Service Commission would make recommendations to council, but council has to make a decision
Right.
whether to accept it or not. So unlike the situation in Lakewood, for instance, where the Civil Service Commission makes a recommendation and if council does nothing,
It's a
the
default.
change goes into effect. We aren't doing that. We still require council to take affirmative action. So they will be making a political decision. And they are, and the way the charter language is written, they would take into account recommendations from you, but they don't necessarily follow them. So you could recommend a change and they could say, we're not gonna make a change. They could say, that's too high, that's too low. You know, it's totally in the discretion of council.
But, and the way I understand it, we don't do the calculations in terms of who deserves a raise, and if so, how much. That's done by someone else, and that's,
Council would make that decision.
oh,
I mean, you would make recommendations as to
but who
council salaries and mayoral
who
salaries.
comes up with the recommendations?
You would have to come up with a recommendation.
In
Excuse
terms
me,
of,
Stephanie, why don't you sit over here?
Oh, I didn't wanna like interrupt.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
And then,
well, it's,
well, and to give a heads up, and Roland and I were at the Civil Service Commission, they also, depending on how the budget and things happen, you know, you guys could maybe it's an external one.
yeah,
And you just oversee it and you're that third party, like how is very unclear. I did pull up the paragraph here as, I think about as good as I can get it, but if you wanna see it, and this is just exactly what, cause it's vague. It just says, you know, the commission shall conduct a review of compensation for the members of council and mayor. And then what and the how and the is.
Yeah.
well, I mean, you told us before that right now there's a review going on by an outside consultant. I can't see us internally doing a review of city council. I mean, sure, you did a good job. We'll give you, I see that everyone gets the same salary except the president of the council. So, you know, I'm not comfortable judging the performance of these individual elected officials. I'm sure, just like any legislative body, there's some good ones and there's some bad ones. So for up to me, I give what I thought people deserve, but even then, I'm not in a position to make that judgment, and I don't want to be.
Right, well, there's no contemplation, generally speaking, when you're looking at something like city council salaries, that there's different salaries for different people.
Correct.
It's just a salary.
Right. It says, it says it there.
It's one number.
That's a good.
I don't see that the salary is a reflection on their performance, but rather just, making sure that the council positions are compensating the council members for their time in a way that is in line with other cities and other types of responsibilities.
Which,
If the civil service didn't decide that, would the council just outsource it on a regular basis, or how would that work? What would be the alternative?
I think, I don't know what they have done in the past in terms of adjusting their own salaries. I'm not aware that there's any particular process in place right now for council and the salary of the mayor. In fact, one of the problems right now with the charter is it doesn't really call for the mayor's salary to adjust it ever, which is
even
kind of a
cost of
problem.
living.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No, it just was kind of a hole
That,
in the
yeah.
drafting, so that needs to get fixed, but it is more like a cost of living adjustment or maybe an evaluation that based upon workload of council, maybe there was a time when council was more passive, and if council now is getting more engaged with things and needs to spend more time on things, maybe an adjustment would be appropriate.
Well,
But again, it's look at comparisons with other cities.
civil service is saying, please don't do this to us. We don't have any other formal process in place. So we either come up with one or we send you home whimpering, I guess.
And if I could just say one thing, and then I want to respond to that, is it's challenging with a small commission of 3 commissioners to get around open records, open meetings. We can't talk to each other about anything. So what I would request is that the process and the policy sort of be looked at individually, like mechanically, how does this work? As much as you can in this process. I don't think any of us were saying we won't do it because we don't have the authority to say that. So if this is something that the Charter Review Commission feels is a good idea and council approves, whether it's the 3 of us who exist on the commission now or in the future, it'll just be, and we'll have to figure it out. But if, to the extent that the issues, just sort of like the mechanics, how does this work? And who comes up with the initial idea, like this is gonna germinate from someone or somebody about, because I don't think in the 20-some, nearly 30 years I've been here, council raises have been enacted, but maybe once. I tried to find, I don't know if in your review, if you came across when council rate were increased.
Not since 2004.
Yeah. And I've been here since 95, 96. And so, so I think we all agree that they're woefully undercompensated. But just how do we get to something that respects the political issues, the policy issues, and the process issues? That's, I think, my ask, to the extent that you can in 14 days.
If it's any help, we found out, correct me if I'm wrong, that the state law says that the city council cannot raise their salary during their current term. They would have to
It'd be forward,
the next
right.
person who occupies that seat, if it's the same person or not, but they can't do that. So that takes a little bit of the political nature out of it.
Yeah.
But I agree, I don't think it's fair for us to put it on you or any commission without saying there's a mechanism in place, or, that we could help create a mechanism. It's just passing the buck,
Yeah.
or
Right.
poor choice of term for the salaries, but you know what I mean.
But that's actually the way it was presented to me 4 or 5 years ago, that it would be a way to shield council from some of the criticism, so.
Yeah, we didn't hear any particular lobbying from anybody on council about them wanting this to shield them from political pressure. We felt that if council still had to make a choice as to whether or not they were going to enact a raise, it's all on them. They can't dodge it. They gotta step up and take the heat if they decide that a raise is appropriate.
They would have the support of the work from civil service.
Well, sure, if civil
And the-
service
yeah.
comes in and says, we've surveyed what the city councils in 7 other communities that are kind of comparable to Cleveland Heights, and we're lagging woefully behind, council may decide, well, maybe we should have an adjustment, and they could explain that to the voters, and the voters may be okay with it, but it's really then a political judgment on the part of council as to whether they want to
Yeah.
give themselves a raise and then take the heat. And I'm sure that people would come to council meetings and tell them what they thought about whether they should have a
That's part
raise.
of the, yeah, that's part of the process.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah, we have looked at those kinds of issues with the safety forces. You know, what's Mayfield paying, what's, you know, any of the, even outside this region. So some of that would be similar to.
Yes.
I think I would just wanna make a comment. I think there are three things which are gonna make it very, three factors which are gonna make it very difficult for council to address this themselves. The first is there hasn't been a raise since '04, which is what, 20 years? The second one is it's a new form of government. So they're, you know, and things are different and they have in some ways more power than they used to.
Mhm.
And third, what was my third reason? Since it's a change in the form of government, they're working harder. I think they would all say that, you know, one of the consequences of the change in the form of government is that they're putting in more hours. I mean, some of them are putting in, 30 hours a week. And the old council, I remember I never had a response from a city council person before the change of government, other than, oh, that's not our responsibility, that's what the city manager does. That was their answer to 100% of questions. So they had, if they put in 2 hours a week, no big deal because they didn't, So I think it's gonna be difficult for the new council for those three reasons to really raise their pay. And if they do, they would probably wanna bump it up maybe significantly since it's been 20 years and they're putting in twice or three times the work and it's gonna be politically difficult for them to even touch this and to do it.
But they have to make that decision that it's
Yeah.
time.
What's their pay?
I think it's 7,000.
9,
It's 9, so it went from 7 to 9.
that was the change
So that
from
was a-
before.
Wow.
100,000, just 7 to 9 what?
1,000.
A year. And then the mayor's full-time, so he has a different salary.
Right. I
Okay.
think he makes about 115.
Okay.
So is there a third party that could legitimately be brought in to provide the analysis on salary increases from mayor and council?
Well, sure, there are consultants who can do it, but I think part of the rationale for having the Civil Service Commission do it is that they would kind of manage that process and
Does the civil service have the authority and the budget to
Right.
hire?
Budget, that's a
well,
key.
that would have to be
I'm asking now.
provided, Drew.
I'm
No, they don't have it now
No,
because
we
they're
don't
not
have
doing
it
it.
now.
No.
No.
That is my question.
And I could
We would need
foresee if a consultant was brought in to do this, that's a whole other set of issues that the
Right.
public, I would think, would.
Yeah.
Why are we, spending money on that, just to say.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
at this point, I would suggest that we write it to say that the council shall hire or take action to determine, if a salary increase is warranted and if so what. Put it on the council to decide how to do it. If they punt it to the Civil Service Commission, then they'll have to give them some kind of support to do that kind of thing, or they go to a consultant. But it sounds to me really unfair to drop it at the Civil Service Commission with no mechanism in place. And the first time out is gonna be a pretty heavy lift, it seems.
Well, but we could easily provide in our language that council would address by ordinance appropriate support for the Civil Service Commission to enable them to do this. That's
Yeah,
pretty
that's how they do your powers and procedures now, right? Is by ordinance? Okay.
So can I paint a scenario? I come from a business background, consulting business background. Okay, so I don't know what will come out of something like this, but I can just, the difficulty seeing how it can be done, it can be easily resolved. All right, because this is done all the time everywhere, essentially, because nobody's able to retain anybody in employment if they can't keep the person's pay somewhat where that needs to be, okay? So the scenario that I would offer, and again, it's just imagining, is just that, let's just say the Civil Service Commission becomes responsible for this. All right, you find someone through references to other cities, et cetera, who does a reliable job in this regard, all right? With the council, you can't let the contract, council has to let the contract anyway.
Right.
So a contract is let to this firm and it's let for a instance, right? And then with the provision, the known provision, if you do a really good job, yada, yada, okay, then we wanna turn this into every 2 years. This is what they're looking at. And so you would work with someone who would develop a methodology, they would come to understand what Cleveland Heights is concerned about, all right? They would develop the methodology, they would get the data, they would do an analysis, which would be very transparent, okay? And then they would come to you with saying, this is what we find. And they could even come to you with, this is what we think are reasonable recommendations. That depends on what your engagement would be with them, okay? And then, once that is done that first year, if it's good and it's people like it all, then it would be something that would be led every 2 years, essentially to the same firm, all right? Because that's what they do, and they've proven they do a good job of it. They probably would be doing it for more than one city, et cetera, okay? So it isn't something that's really hard to imagine solving. It would take that initial investment to get it started, yes, all right? But it's done everywhere all the time, and it's,
So may I ask a question, and Graham, I don't know if you, or if anybody else, 10 years ago when it was increased, do we know if a consultant was employed, engaged to do that?
20 years, I think.
20.
Oh, 20, my gosh, 20 years ago.
Actually, so in 2001, it was raised
That's
from
the last.
7,000 to 9,000 went into effect.
It went to, right, because it had been.
Before that, it was raised in 96. So there was like a 5-year period before that, 83. Before that, 78.
And no
So do we
record
know
about
if- yeah.
consulting.
I don't have any record about that, sorry.
Okay,
See, I think they can figure out how to hire a consultant, but my feeling is that they don't feel really empowered to do that. And I think we have to tell the council that you have to empower the commission to hire a consultant if that's how you want to do it. We shouldn't leave it to the commission saying, well, I guess we're gonna have to hire somebody. I think we're putting them in a bind that way.
the main bind I see is just scheduling meetings, because they have to be noticed, and if 2 of us are there, still a 3-person commission, it just becomes unwieldy.
Well, maybe you'd be a bigger commission.
Maybe we'd be a bigger, and that would also take another act
I
to do
believe
that. So however,
Yeah.
I think it can be done, just respecting the issues we've raised, so I don't wanna belabor it, but
I think we understand your
yeah.
perspective.
I just want to add, I believe that Lakewood's Civil Service Commission is actually paid. I don't know if, are you guys
Stipend, yeah,
stipend? Okay, nice.
yeah, per meeting.
Nice.
Well, what if we say something like the council every odd numbered year, the council shall by ordinance empower the civil service to hire a consultant or something like that?
Well, it would have to be in the charter, as if you're gonna do it every 2 years, then they have to have a process that works to support the commission every
That's
2
what I was
years. But
describing.
we can work that
That's what I
out
was trying to describe.
Yeah, we could work that out without keeping Judy.
Well, I wanted to run it by them so that it sounded
Yeah.
comfortable to them.
I mean, I think it's fair to say we anticipate that this is gonna be recommended in some form. We just wanted
Yeah.
to inform about our conversations.
And one question is there any particular reason or rationale to why there's only 3 of you? Outside of the charter says it?
But I don't know, but a lot of civil service, the ones I'm aware of are 3-person commissions. I don't know why. But it just, and it's fine, except, it becomes hard when you have these sort of things which would be really good in a working session, but you gotta have a meeting.
Well, I'm thinking, cause
I don't know why.
we're touching the charter and the charter says how many members you have. So it's like, I don't even know if that's something to consider, cause instead
And
of
for a
3,
long time, it was just Hugh and I. It's hard to find people to serve. But I don't know why it was created as 3.
Well, we haven't been considering it, and it's probably too late now to bump it up to 5 or 7 or that sort of thing.
Well, we could suggest the council may wanna consider that.
That could go in our report.
Well, that would make your work easier, because every time that way it would enable you to have conversations with
Two
Yeah.
of you could talk.
90% of the time, it's not even an issue. Because we're just signing off on lists or hearing grievances around a test score. But in issues like this, it would be a lot easier to manage it.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's helpful to have your perspective.
Yeah, thank you
You're very
very
welcome.
much.
thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
coming.
all you do.
Yes.
Yes, I need to adjourn civil service, so it
You know
is now
someone's listening.
6:27.
Yes, we do.
6:27 on May 15th, and the civil service portion of this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks again for coming.
Very much.
Thank you for having us, giving us this time. Thanks, Lee. What other, is there another? I had 3 last week, so I'm like, Lee, what are you doing? What else would it be? Planning?
I can never remember if you had that last week.
We had that, and we had one this morning. Yeah, it was this morning, we had the call meeting, and last week. Thank you.
Bye-bye, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
So I wanna
Can I
propose,
just make one comment about this? Is it appropriate?
Yeah.
I think the citizenry is a hell of a lot more concerned about the city hiring consultants to do everything under the sun than they are about legitimate salaries for city council or possibly even expanding the I mean, I think there's a real felt need on the part of the citizenry for the city to not, every time they turn around, hire a consultant.
well, but if you wanna tackle something like this, Harriet, I would say that this is a situation where use of a consultant seems warranted because it's been so long since anybody's looked at these salaries. And it is a little unfair to expect the city council people to keep chugging along for 20 years without a salary adjustment.
Well, and then I just glancing to see if there was anything behind more than just the webpage on council salaries, and I stumbled in May of 23 that Shaker Heights used the Cleveland Heights Citizens for an Elected Mayor's study or report, which was still 4 years old, to help propose their salaries. So they were using some base, and I'm sure that they didn't, if they did it internally, they would have done it well, or they would have engaged people to do it like.
But
So-
that was only the mayor's salary, not.
No, it's for council and mayor. No, I'm saying that's what Shaker Heights is using.
Oh,
And I just glanced the article, but it was just, they still went to a basis of something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure somebody paid for it somehow, whether it's in kind or, you know.
Well, I don't know, but I think that I know that like right now, Lakewood is doing their salary process. And we got a copy of a report that they issued in 2020, where they summarized what they did and what their recommendations were. So this is not like nobody's ever done this before and somebody's gotta, start inventing a wheel. It's not hard. As you said, it's a normal
very
process.
And if I might, Harriet, in regard to your statement, I'm not really aware what the citizenry is concerned about, but I know that if you hire consultants to do things which you think the city people ought to be able to do anyway, I can understand that would be a matter of friction and irritation. In this particular case, you have an expertise that is required, which is very, very specific. And nobody in the city is gonna have that expertise, all right? And if you want a fair and supportable result, you can't do it off the cuff.
That is true, but people don't make distinctions.
Well, we have.
Well, I think
that's-
they would.
That's, and part of that's the reason why you have to take, if you're in the power, you have to take the heat, you know what I mean?
Well, you have to explain to
That's what you
people
do.
why it's
Well, okay,
Yeah.
let's not belabor this.
It's kind of a fox in the henhouse situation
Yeah,
if
I mean-
council's doing their own study. I mean, I think it helps the transparency.
No, I'm not, there's no issue here.
Okay.
You don't need to convince me of anything, there's no issue.
All right, so in any event, I think we need to look at the section on the commission, if you could flip to that.
We're on it.
No, the one on the
3.4, or you want the commission?
the commission.
Okay.
All right, so what does it say right now? It
Let me,
says,
make it easier. Oh, that happened.
no, the Civil Service Commission.
I know.
I think you were in the right place and I
I was.
confused you.
Bad things happen.
Oh, it's not too bad.
So we've got a new paragraph, right, that says,
It's at the very end, yeah, here. The council and mayor.
let me stroll up here so I can see without squinting. All right.
I encourage
So we can provide that, we can add a sentence that says that council shall provide by ordinance
There's a-
for,
Yeah, there's stuff up here, I don't know if we could,
Yeah, let's see the whole section.
where they get into codified ordinance.
well, I know, but
Oh, I'm just saying, I don't, no, I meant to we copy it down, is that language helpful?
you could probably get that first part, shall provide by codified ordinance.
Ooh, a codified ordinance, whoa, look out.
And then,
Codified?
Whatever you want it to be.
We could just, but should they both be codified or both not? I thought we decided
That was the only one
we're
who
gonna use codified.
It's gonna be
Maybe
expensive.
we just
to
have
see
ordinance.
every 2 years.
My question is it before we get into the odd number of years or after?
And after,
It's open.
so say after the end of the
Salaries are gonna
sentence,
go up.
at the end of that whole paragraph, say, take out the except part. Council shall provide by codified ordinance,
By ordinance.
Appropriate budget and support to enable the commission to conduct the compensation report
So you would only go up.
and recommendations. Does that make sense?
Well, compensation review.
Yeah.
Because there's no report there. You're gonna do
Okay.
compensation review and recommendations?
Yeah. What do you all think about that?
And I
Winner.
can reread it.
Roland, do you have any
So,
thoughts about that?
It's a winner.
It's a winner, okay.
That means we're gonna talk about it for an hour. Okay.
Can I suggest that it should be, I would suggest compensation review and prepare recommendations or the preparation of or something of that nature, because
To
You're
conduct
not
the compensation review
conducting a
and prepare
recommendation.
recommendations, okay,
prepare recommendations.
that's good. Okay. Anybody have any other thoughts about language we need to add? We could certainly elaborate in the report on why we're saying that.
I'm good with this for going forward to the public personally, so I'll motion that we accept the change as written.
I'll second it.
Yeah, as drafted.
So I wonder, I'm wondering about Lakewood's process to, where the salary goes up without council having to vote on it. Does that mean that Lakewood is exempt from the Ohio Revised Code saying that council
No.
members can't vote on the
It's still
salary
delayed,
increase?
it's still delayed effectiveness.
It's still delayed.
Yeah.
Does it have to be,
It has to be delayed.
even though they're not voting on it?
It has to be delayed.
Okay.
State criminal ethics statute.
I just thought,
I asked the question, because I thought, we're a home rule city, can't we get a, no, we can't.
because I was thinking that like the ethics was for them voting
Yeah.
on their increase.
The
So it
only
was, like,
thing,
asking
the only
questions
thing that the
still.
facilitator said you could do that would be automatic is if you wanted to enact something that would say there would be an automatic cost of living increase.
Interesting.
But I don't know that we wanna go there. I don't feel comfortable with that.
Charter,
Is it in Lakewood's charter?
We're saying salary and other compensation, would that be like travel expenses or something like that?
I think it's,
Health insurance.
I think they only get compensation for council. The mayor probably gets health insurance.
What about
Yeah, we think of
going to
fringe.
conferences?
they also will qualify for OPERS,
Fringe.
it can be part of your service credits.
What about compensation for training?
What about it? I mean, salary and other
That's
compensation covers
Yeah, I
it,
mean, it
so.
could be travel expenses, it could be
So that includes something other than salary.
Yeah, because it says salary and other compensation.
I'm just checking to make sure that we're covering what needs to be covered
but
here.
I think also by saying other compensation versus fringe, it's broader.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
In the first sentence, we say compensation, in the last sentence, we say salaries, and in the middle, we say salary and other compensation. So we're not terribly
You
consistent.
should
but
make it
it's-
consistent, Jonathan, use salary and compensation everywhere.
And, so in the we're gonna look at this, we're gonna make a decision if we like this. I think in the report, we can also note that we're recommending the Civil Service Commission take on this responsibility, or be given this responsibility. Council, of course, can consider the other alternatives, like appointing a separate commission. So we're not, in making this recommendation, we're not fixing it to just the Civil Service Commission. We're just saying, council, somebody needs to do this. Right now, we're set up to deal with the commission. You're free to do whatever you want. And I think if we can put that into the report,
Sure.
I'd be comfortable saying this is good, this is good.
Jonathan, would you do me a favor, and there's another place here where it says conduct the compensation review, so every place it says that, it should say salary and compensation review.
Thank you. And then, but at the end where it says into account the standards for salaries set forth in 3.4, 3.4 is only salaries.
I know, but it probably should also say salary and
But doesn't
compensation.
compensation,
But I'm saying it doesn't cover other compensation that.
I'm saying we should change it to make it do that.
Oh, we should change then also 3.4. Well, you're just silly.
doesn't compensation cover salary? That's a more inclusive term, right? It covers everything.
I think salary is a form of compensation.
And after that,
Salary and teacher review
Other compensation.
for, okay, got it.
you want it to be other compensation throughout, okay, so.
Yes.
Second line, other compensation, last, there you go.
And then the second line.
Okay.
So,
Good then.
And the title for that section we were just in?
is.
No,
just
go down to that paragraph we were just in. Doesn't it have a heading?
No.
Salary and other compensation review?
No.
In D? In paragraph D?
Oh, I see what you're saying by heading. I'm like, there's no heading. Okay. Compensation.
Salary.
There you go. Okay, got it. Now I understand.
Now go back to 3.4.
Oh, right. There's. I was just there.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Fix the salary and compensation.
Salary and other compensation.
Ooh, look at that.
Yes, we can do this.
We did it. All caps.
Fixing salary and compensation. Other. You know what I'm doing? Do this. I'm sick of it. I will amend my motion to every place mentioned in 3.4 as well as the.
Yeah, we
lump
can
for
we can
civil
cover that
service.
with a globe.
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
Well, so I do this, I don't know if there's any more discussion.
All right, so you're amending the motion and I'm seconding the amended motion. Okay. What do we think, folks? Any other thoughts, comments, concerns?
We're just caught up in the drama here.
Is it really that exciting?
We will vote, but we also wanna just make sure we do or don't wanna look at the at least in the report, talking about the size of the Civil Service Commission, if it's
Yeah, we can
responsible
mention that
for
too.
them as
Yeah.
well.
Can we vote? Can I call for the question?
Sorry?
Can I call for the question?
Well, I'm asking if anybody has any other comments,
And
questions?
it's silence, so
Well, Guy had a comment.
I said ever since he.
Well, I don't know how important this is, but can we respond to the commissioners when they want cover, political cover? Can we say something on the order, this is for good government?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, we already say in the report that council has to make the decision.
Mhm.
That it's not the commission making the decision, council has to take the action and make the decision because
Sure.
it's their decision.
Sure. I was just trying to be responsive to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that that's everything, but I'm sure I missed something.
Okay. Well, we can go back and do a global, but I think we have the conceptual thing here that we're changing at every place it occurs. So, thank you for your comments. Anybody else wanna say anything before we vote? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, thank you. So, the next item on the agenda is the stuff about the meeting. So, let's put that aside for a second and stick on charter stuff, because I wanna be sure we hear it if anybody has any other points. I wanna mention that we had an item on our issues list yesterday that we didn't get to, which relates to section 10.5. So if you would go to 10.5, please. So the point here is training. The language on training in 10.5 talks about topics. And I think we had discussed that we were going to suggest topics, but we weren't gonna define them. We were gonna say, council's gonna decide, but here's some things you could think about. And this doesn't say that. This says that there will be training on these things. And I'm just wondering whether we wanna revise that a bit to say that there will be training and that the specific topics for training will be determined by council, but suggested topics might include, and let them decide. Cause I thought we had to, in our discussion, said we didn't wanna be too stringent about this because needs could change over time. And council could decide that there are different topics that need to be addressed. What do y'all think about that?
I'm not clear, we've got this language that Jonathan has highlighted currently in our proposed thing. And that seems to suggest specific areas of training.
Yeah, like it's mandatory.
Exactly, and those are the topics you were talking about?
Yes.
And you were not sure about whether we should specify those or take that part out?
Well, suggesting that we could leave them in as suggested, but not that the charter requires this particular curriculum, but rather that council would determine the contents of the training, which may include blah, 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 not it shall.
I support that.
Well, we could, if we put before including the word ideally including but not.
I don't even wanna say ideally, cause I wanna leave it to council.
You don't want to do this, basically, just to be clear, you don't want to specify.
I don't wanna mandate.
Exactly, okay, so.
Well, that's my suggestion, because I think that's what we talked about when we were going over this. That we wanted to be not insisting that a certain curriculum be followed, we were gonna leave it to council.
Well, but you can say like council members and the mayor shall complete pertinent training for their respective roles.
Right.
Such as.
You can also say may complete training including but not limited to.
Well, we want them to do training, we just don't wanna specify the curriculum.
Well, I do, actually, the things we heard from some of the counselors said, we need training in these areas, we don't get training and we need training, so I'm okay with being specific on it.
Wait, so what did I say that was different
The may.
from what you were saying?
You said
I
may.
thought you said may too.
Well, no, what I was saying is you have to do training and the curriculum is gonna be selected by council and the curriculum may include these things. These are
Oh, so
You
suggestions.
then-
shall train and then it may include
Including but not limited to,
something like, yeah.
and just add that if you want, if you're keeping shall, which makes sense because you want them to do the training, then just specify like, I don't know, these general topics. Including,
Well, cause part of the thinking, I think this came out when we
It's
had
not
our
permanent.
discussion, that part of the premise here is that, right now, today, we may think we know what they need in training, but, maybe in 2 years, they're gonna need something else.
also
And,
depends on who's elected.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
before Jonathan jumped in, putting a period after administration that he's highlighted, not saying they're at the mayor. To achieve these goals, council members and the mayor shall complete training on the best practices of municipal government administration, period. This training may include but not be limited to.
This gets in the ballpark, I think.
This training may include but not be limited to.
So Jonathan, Drew is suggesting that you put back the language you took out.
No, it's okay, I'm just saying, where he's got the red may now, put this training, capital T, this training may.
Oh, I
Yeah.
was not following you
Sorry,
at all.
no problem.
Yes.
So we have a new sentence now. To achieve these goals, council members and the committee shall complete training if you want pertinent to their respective positions.
Well, it should be roles, shouldn't it be?
Sure.
Well, I like the on the best practices of municipal government administration, at least that creates a ballpark, you know?
It's okay to leave that in.
So we could do both, pertinent to their respective positions on the best practices, blah, 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 period. This training may include but not be limited to.
I think that's good. What do you all think? What do you think, Roland?
Well, we had this discussion way back, and my concern is that we're trying to tell people who are elected what they to do, and we're implying that they don't have the skills. And
Well, they don't.
well, they got elected. So I'm for a weaker encouraging of them to get skills, but this to me is a bit too heavy-handed.
Well, I think the source for this came out of many comments we heard, not just from one person, but from several people that indicated that there was a need for this kind of training. And I think that it's probably going to be more frequently true than not that somebody who's new to a role like city council or mayor is going to need this sort of background training. I mean, Drew, would you say before you became a council person that you understood the rules about budgeting and,
Absolutely not, boy, oh boy, no idea.
yeah?
I mean, it's some, because I was attending council meetings for a long time, but the training was essential because that's when we learned basically our responsibilities and our limitations,
Mhm.
which really go together.
Mm-hmm.
See, and then I think that we should take out the on the best practices of municipal blah, 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 because it could be more than just best practices of municipal government administration. Like, to me, that would add flexibility, like leadership, how not to be an ass, things like that. But seriously, like facilitation, different things are
But that would come
not
under best practice.
necessarily, but they're not necessarily that. And instead of like getting into the weeds and the argument, to me, it's like, you should get training for what you do. It can include this stuff. Thumbs up.
Is there a way to make it come across more as like continuing education rather than, hey, we don't think you know what you're doing? Because I agree that there is probably a lack of always knowing you like
It's a new role.
right.
Yeah.
But then I also see where Roland's coming from, like, well, we don't wanna totally like throw you
Well, so,
under the bus from the beginning.
and so what I see by taking this out and just saying respective positions is that it opens it up because maybe you are coming with skills, but you're not gonna have all the skills necessarily.
That's fine. If we'd worded to, we recommend that you avail yourself of various training
Mhm.
modules.
Yeah.
Well, that's what council will do. Council will say, here's a set of classes that we recommend, and you might wanna do these two first.
Yeah, I'm just reacting to shall.
Well, I think we want them to complete the training.
Okay.
That we decided that pretty decisively.
Yeah, that's.
Can we change it to must?
Oh,
You want a comma?
Yes, I want a comma.
I'm looking at one, but that's okay. I think putting it this way takes the onus out of it applying to any one individual. This is just saying we apply this to everybody. You may have lots of qualifications, you may have none. Either
Right.
way, we wanna make sure you get the training. So to me, that is, it's not dissing anybody. It's saying, we will just treat you all as, brave new world.
Mm-hmm.
See, and to me, what it adds, I'm thinking like budgetarily or whatever, is if the citizens were to attack and say, look at how much you're putting in training, like, you can criticize that, but the charter says we have to do training, so we have to set money aside.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna cost that much money to have this training, but.
I've just seen, I'm the
Dubai.
person who goes through for ammunition of anywhere and everything, so.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the language that's up on the screen. Is there a second?
The all of it?
Second.
Okay, is there further discussion, further edits? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? You're opposing?
Yeah, well, on the best practice, I wanted that out.
Yeah, he wanted that out.
Alright,
I'm the only one, so that's
so
fine.
we have 7 yes and 1 no, okay. Okay, so we left over yesterday a point on 8.1 where there was a question that you raised as to whether the mayor had the authority to veto an initiative. We have learned that he does not. We could add a sentence to 4.5 that talks about the veto, that says that nothing proposed by initiative petition can be subject to veto of the mayor. There was language that Lee sent around on that,
There's a copy here.
yeah. So the question is just where to put it, and I was suggesting we would put it in 4.5 because that's where the veto power is discussed.
So this is 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's all 4.5.
So it would go at the end. Now, and I raised a question with Lee as to whether, in addition to saying no ordinance or other measure, we should also refer to a charter amendment. So you think we don't need that, Lee?
No, that's constitutionally prohibited.
Yeah, the first, he says you can't do, the mayor cannot veto a procedural measure that submits a charter amendment to the electors. But it doesn't say if it cause you, then the mayor can't vote something, can't veto something the voters pass, right?
Well, that's what we're saying in this new sentence that we would add.
As far as I can tell, and that the word veto does not appear in this section.
Just disapproval.
Yes,
Well, that's what it is, though.
yes, yeah, I'm just saying, we'd be introducing a word, and, you know, that's okay if we need to do
Or
that.
we could say, shall be subject to disapproval by the mayor.
That would fit in with the language, because
Mhm.
otherwise we'd be awarding the mayor a power that may not be reflected.
Okay.
So Linda, can you state again what you'd like to add at the end of?
What I'm suggesting is that we add the sentence that Lee suggested, except instead of saying the veto, we say to disapproval by the mayor.
Is there a reason we're not using the word veto?
Because it isn't used anywhere else in this paragraph.
No ordinance or other measure proposed by initiative petition and approved by a majority of the electors voting upon the measure in such municipal corporation, interesting, shall be subject to the disapproval of the mayor.
And that's what the ORC says.
Is it a reason we're not
That
using
we're
veto
putting
in the whole paragraph?
I think.
Well, just because it's, the way it's written now, it uses disapproval.
Is that what I'm copying, is the no ordinance?
It's clear.
Is that the language I'm copying?
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't-
And do we say, do we want to use that in such municipal corporation, because that's state language, I think we might want to change that.
We could say in the city.
Yeah,
We should say veto throughout the paragraph.
Barry, can we just, let's get at least this much of the sentence in there, and then we go back and say whether or not we want to change disapproval to veto. Yeah, just make it very specific for the discussion.
I don't really care. Do you have a thought on that, Lee?
Whether or not to use veto or
Yeah.
disapproval, not at the moment.
I think change it to in the city rather than in such city,
In the,
in the city.
Thought we weren't,
And I don't know if it's capitalizing the city through.
thought we weren't talking about this now.
You were talking about what now?
And we're talking about that, I'm just saying, now that we've got this sentence in here,
Okay,
we've got that much finished.
Alright.
Now let's say, just to ask, do we wanna have disapproval, or do we wanna have veto?
We could say veto if you want to. I mean, there's nothing
I don't-
that says we have to leave it the way it is. We could.
I think veto is clearer.
Yeah,
Current language
Yeah.
tracks state law 705, 575. I think that's where it comes from. And in state law, veto is used in the title of the section, but not in the body of it. So.
Okay, well, I would leave it the way it is, if that's what the state law says. So it should be disapproval by the mayor, not disapproval of the mayor?
So legally, when that sentence would mean if the mayor disapproves, that means he's actually taking the action of vetoing. He's not just, oh, I disapprove of your suggestion, kind of.
Right.
There's a legal definition of disapprove that means veto,
Yeah, I think this says it tracks the state veto
Is city
statute. I
capitalized?
think it's
cause a citizen reading that wouldn't know that that's a veto necessarily.
So yes, it is.
Okay. Is that okay, Harriet?
I just prefer veto.
Well, I know, but I think it's better to track the statute for something that's covered in the statute specifically. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion that we approve it with those changes.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Me,
Maybe we should change the title of that section to disapproval. Only kidding.
Okay.
I mean, it's legislative.
So, does anybody else have any edits that they found in the charter that you wanna make?
Nothing at the moment from me. And just to be clear, you're talking about the charter itself, not the report, the charter,
Talking about the charter at this moment.
Yes.
Anything on the charter?
being crystal clear.
Nobody has anything further on the charter, we'll go to the report. Okay, so we'll go to the report.
And then I was able to put that, you sent out two.
Well, I sent one out today
No, you sent out a PDF red line of like a
and
compare
and a clean.
and a clean, so which do you think would be best for me to pull up?
Probably the compare,
Okay.
but, cause I'm assuming anybody who looked at the document was looking at a compare.
This is the, okay. Yeah, this is the compare.
So does anybody have any additional comments? I made changes to the comments you all gave me yesterday.
I do, for the ranked choice voting product.
Which one?
Ranked choice voting.
That's give me a page-ish.
24.
Thanks. There we go.
So, the actual, name of instant runoff voting and single transferable voting is it's instant runoff. And the name for STV is single transferable vote. Those are the names that have been attached to those instead of voting. Instant runoff, period. And then instant runoff voting then the next sentence is fine. And then the paragraph below, which is also known
Hang on a
as.
Can you hold
second.
on one quick second? I can't, I want to, and I just realized that the PDF is too limiting, so let me pull up something I can touch. Cause I didn't want you to get all the way to the end and be like, hey, can you repeat all of that? Alright. This again.
I did.
No, I
Got it.
suggestions doesn't go to you,
Only if you share it with me.
cause I had started that.
So the first paragraph there, types of ranked choice voting.
Thank you.
Second sentence, wait a minute, first sentence, I guess.
Okay,
It's-
can we,
It's called instant runoff as opposed to instant runoff voting,
so that gets,
just delete voting.
Okay.
And then in the next paragraph, no, not there,
that was-
not there,
No.
keep it there. In the next
Proportional.
paragraph, it's known as
Single transferable vote.
single transferable, STD, single transferable vote,
Okay.
just delete the ing.
okay. Got it.
There, yeah.
Cause that's the name of it, SPV. And then on page 25.
Okay,
Okay, this is a change I had previously made but didn't get in. Ohio is steep, that paragraph.
Mhm.
The third sentence, starting with Cleveland.
Yep.
Okay, it says it's currently, if you could substitute after used to read Cleveland used it from 1923 to 1931 when it was the largest city in the nation to do so. Just more specific.
and the largest city in the nation?
Largest city in the nation to do so. And I
So then get rid of all
What,
those.
before you do that, so Harry, previously it said beginning in 1921, are you taking that out to
Yeah.
change the date to 23?
right, well,
Okay.
they're using it in 23, it was passed in 21.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's sixth largest, right?
Well, no, when it was I think the sentence should be when it was the largest city in the nation to use it, to do so.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's sort of a.
I'm just making sure I didn't
Right, yeah.
miss it.
You could do both if you want to say the sixth largest city in the nation.
No,
Okay.
I think the biggest we ever were was ninth, so I don't put that in there.
Okay.
I don't think that was right information. I took that from something,
All right.
but I don't wanna.
All right, that all looks good.
Okay, so page 27. This is just at the top of the page.
Uh-huh.
Whoops, that's not what I had.
Well, I mean, just,
You might be in the compare.
26, I think.
yeah, it could be 26.
What does the paragraph start with?
26.
It's a bullet point.
Yep, got it.
It's above that.
Okay.
Okay, so that last bullet point.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so the second sentence should be taken out of the bullet point and put into that next paragraph.
Give me a second, 'cause
That's
this is-
There's growing pressure, that's the sentence you
Yeah,
want moved?
yeah.
Okay.
Cause that is not an example of whatever it was.
So it should look like this. There was a growing
Yeah,
and then a
right.
six. Okay,
Yeah, because it's not a problem, it's just, yeah.
okay. Got
Okay,
that.
and then finally, this is an actual change. I thought I had given this to Linda, but I don't think it got into the final. In the footnotes,
Which,
at the very end of the
okay,
I'm sorry, at the very end of the
You in
appendix.
the appendix?
I'm sorry, at the end of the appendix, page 59, sorry.
no, you're fine.
And the paging doesn't track.
Yeah.
58.
So, we got it, 56-ish, but.
Okay, so, you were
Further
there.
resources?
Keep going down, yeah. See where it says fair vote?
Oh, yeah.
I think delete all that address stuff.
And telephone?
Yeah, all that, delete that.
Okay.
And what I put in here, it is just because we had so many questions about it, let me just read this. Fair Vote is a 501c3 organization. Can I read it first and then we can? That researches and advocates for electoral reform in the United States. It was founded, we don't have to, it was founded in 1902 as Citizens for Proportional Representation to support the implementation of proportional representation in American elections. Its focus expanded over time to include other election reform proposals such as instant runoff voting, a national popular vote for president, a right to vote amendment to the Constitution, and universal voter registration. It changed its name to the Center for Voting and Democracy in 1993 and to Fair Vote in 2004 to reflect those changing focuses. We don't have to put all that in there, but that's the largest. And then below that, I just put helpful in explaining RCVR, and then the three.
Okay, so if you might just hand that to me, Harriet, I can deal with that.
It's not a comma, but the sentence above that, I think we need spaces between the initials and the numbers.
We don't need their address and phone number and other, that's. but it does explain what it is,
Okay.
since we're.
Anybody have any
we're
questions
relying
about
so
including
heavily-
what Harriet read?
No, I just plugged in fair vote helpful in explaining RCV, but however I
Yeah, I'll take Harriet's
Okay,
thing here and put it in.
that's all.
Okay. Stephanie, you have points?
I was doing more of a general review of like thing with like just clean up in the report. But then I was doing like suggestions, but I started that when we got it on the 13th, but now there's the newer document. So
So you have suggestions you wanna share with us?
There are a bunch of little ones, like it's more of a easier to just go in through and accept changes and stuff like that, like rewording some sentences just for like succinctness and stuff like that.
So you wanna get your document to Jonathan so he can put it up
I
on the screen?
can, I'm not that far yet, cause I was going through the whole report.
Well, that's fine, but you could give it to Jonathan and he could throw it up on the screen.
I can put it up now, and then also yesterday we did talk is we want something to be able to, it's in draft form and it's going for public meeting on the 21st, which then post-public meeting, there might be some changes or adjustments or whatever, and then we'll have to approve the final report.
Okay.
Right.
So I don't know if you wanna get into it now, go over specifics, if you just wanna see how the
I'm
public
okay
meeting goes, and then,
Yeah,
'Cause
I like doing that kind of stuff, like going through and making it like I'm happy to like help with that, like
so how,
You wanna keep working on your own or?
I can, but I'm just on the wrong document now, and I don't know what version like will,
a lot of it
I'll
did
send
not
you-
change.
You can send you it tomorrow morning, whatever.
okay.
Yeah, like Linda augmented the ranked choice voting piece, like there weren't large substantial changes from the 13th to
No.
now.
Okay,
Nothing like in the past where you were rearranging whole sections.
Right.
So
okay,
you have a pretty solid, but yeah,
Okay.
You could take the one that was circulated today
Yeah.
and work in that.
switch it over,
Yeah.
okay.
Jonathan, would it help you if Stephanie sends installments, if she
No.
gets?
because I can't do anything with it. And this just gets back to it's awkward editing a document together.
Yeah.
Because we
Right.
either have to go through every change
Right.
or then determine is it substantive, how much,
Yeah,
I mean, I just don't,
Yeah, and we don't really have the bandwidth to make a lot of changes before we post this stuff, but we could make changes after the public
Yeah.
meeting
Right.
and
it's less
do a
like,
final.
it's not really content change, it's more like,
flow
Yeah.
and then Leah suggested that if we have a not quorum, so like 4 people could work on it or whatever, and then we could say, okay, you 4 come up with something solid, and then, so that's an option too that we haven't discussed, but is there, I know we're just trying to get to have a draft to the public,
I can
but
just,
not discount.
yeah, I can just keep chugging away at it. I'm doing like what's called suggestions, but I'm doing like attract changes basically, so that you
Okay.
can see what I'm deleting and suggesting.
Anything comments in, or if you need to,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
I think that could be very helpful, but yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have changes? Jonathan, we have your edit to the land acknowledgement.
Yes,
But does anyone else have anything before we get to that?
that's the
We can go to
pickup from
that.
yesterday.
Just,
And it's printed out.
Yeah.
Well, so whatever I sent Lee, I actually sent him the whole report.
I accidentally uploaded the entire report because I've been working on the same document, so apologies.
So just
Now
the
you
first few
have-
pages.
You printed out full.
I was gonna say, we don't want all this in
Yeah.
the.
That would just be first page and a reading. So I did speak with Cynthia and Sundance about including their name in the report. Sundance was in favor of including his name. Cynthia preferred that we merely credited the Lake Erie Native American Council rather than her specifically.
Is Sundance's total name?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we could just cut Cynthia Colony, the chair of the executive board of.
Chaired by the Lake Erie Native American Council,
And
Sundance Executive of the Cleveland American Indian Movement.
And then in the next sentence, if we could just say they instead of Cynthia and Sundance.
they emphasized the need for land. Okay. And so as I was going through it, and this is what I came up with. I thought it was I was trying to find a way, stuff we talked about with past, present, future where appropriate, but then also, for me, it was important to hammer home the idea of concrete action. So I just took it from the specific action, just used the word concrete. So then, I don't know any thoughts or opinions on the first paragraph. I can put up here what changes you're looking at if that will help.
I think that looks okay, Jonathan.
I like the beginning that you know, both moment of honest reckoning with past and present mistreatment of Indigenous peoples. I do think that we need to include specifically recognizing Indigenous people living in Cleveland Heights today. So that was a big part of their advice, was just to avoid the erasure of these folks. And so while saying past and present, I think gets us some of the way there, I just think being explicit and saying Indigenous people living in Cleveland Heights today would be important.
Well, and actually that was a good question that I had, because it was here we want to focus on the mistreatment within our region. So then where do I put the?
Let me suggest you could take out the both and say to be a moment of honest and specific reckoning with past and present mistreatment of Indigenous peoples, comma, while also recognizing the Indigenous people living in Cleveland Heights today, and then make a separate sentence that uses the concrete action idea.
Well, there actually was one in there. They also emphasized the importance of such a statement being accompanied by specific action. That got taken out.
And we could say concrete action instead of specific action.
Graham, are you okay with taking out government and saying past and present?
Well, you know, I think it wasn't just the government,
Yeah.
right? So
We all had a hand in that.
And also varying levels of government, federal policy determined, I mean, it's
Right.
very nasty.
I mean, it's from the U.S. military's like, you know, physical genocide to
Congress.
Chief Wahoo,
Congress.
right?
Yeah.
And so like,
Yeah, that's good. It spreads the guilt more justly, yeah.
So would we say they also emphasize the importance of concrete action?
Well, of such a statement being accompanied by concrete action. So I went with what we had yesterday and just
Yeah.
popped
that's
back
good.
to the concrete instead of specific.
Okay.
I think actually that's nice and
So what's up there for the first paragraph looks good to me.
I think so.
Okay.
all right.
Second, when you managed to compress that nicely, resulted in the drafted language below.
Well, and the reason it was because we had gone back and forth about lingo, blah, blah, and it's like here's what was discussed, and I think that's a great idea, but at the same time, it's drafted like just hammering it home.
Yeah.
But that was mine.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that seems good. I feel like if you go with that language, I feel more comfortable adding and edited after discussed. Just to like, I don't know, be clear that it went through a process
Yeah, we
of
do-
editing in meetings.
We do need some connection between the draft was discussed resulting, that's more, draft was discussed in several commission meetings, comma, yay. Go ahead, Graham, what were you saying?
Well, I was thinking discussed and edited.
Okay,
And several commission.
And then we get to put a comma after meetings.
A comma.
Yes, yeah, well, sure. This draft was discussed and entered in several commission meetings, commas, resulting in the drafted language below.
I just highlighted the whole sentence.
I get rewards from the comma lobby every time I do this.
I mean, that's good with me. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on
I
it.
think that looks good.
Yeah.
And there's my next one on this page, in this last paragraph, was just to hammer home the fact that it's gotta be both acknowledgement and future action, concrete action, whatever. But I was just trying to hammer that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but the proponents of the acknowledgement were absolutely on board with that as well. That was not brought to us as an objection that we had ignored. That was something that we were insisting on from the very start. So I get it, but I would rather have it someplace not in concerns that were raised.
I don't
I
remember
mean,
that being raised during.
Those were mine.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I put it there, is because
But they were concerns raised by the people who wanted to put the language acknowledgement in, not the concerns,
all I said was these concerns, and one of my concerns was that it include acknowledgement and future action, and I didn't feel comfortable that we couldn't obligate the whole city to future action in the charter without a discussion.
Right.
That was my
Right.
point. I'm not also I mean, and if you guys feel different, that's
well,
fine.
see, that it comes in a paragraph, all the objections to.
But it says these concerns. Are there
That was
objections?
his objection.
Yeah, that was my objection. Because the future action was tied up with the city not being able to discuss it properly, appropriately. That was my feelings.
Then maybe we should just clarify your edit to include that lack of discussion, or that your concern was that it would be committing to action without discussion.
So would it be appropriate to say that an acknowledgement must contain both acknowledgement and future action after discussion? Is that your thought? I mean, it's your idea, so you have to say whether it's.
it was that acknowledgement contains both, I don't know. Oh, okay, it was, my concern was over, something like dialogue with the city and its residents is needed regarding future action for putting it in the charter, and there might be, but I don't know if that
You could say-
it's a cleaner.
Regarding the future action a land acknowledgement requires.
Yeah.
Regarding future action,
Is that both, that it hits,
we say would or requires, just requires.
I think just make it strong.
That's what
Long list.
I like secretly
Oxford.
love and then also hate it. Like,
To dialogue with the city and its residents needed regarding future action.
I would,
I mean, that gets much closer to my point.
yeah, I would choose the need for dialogue with city residents.
Say it again, sir.
Start with the need for dialogue with the city and its residents regarding.
Doesn't the dialogue need to include the indigenous people?
But they're residents too, but yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the need for dialogue,
Then it makes more sense.
I mean, regarding the future action the land acknowledgement requires. I'm good with that. It's also slightly vague and I get it, but kind of on purpose because I can't list off who.
You can say public dialogue. Or
Purposeful. Cause I was thinking it was a public meeting, like, this is not something where you like try to slide by, this is we all comfortable eat each other, cool, can we get over that?
Okay,
You guys good with that?
Sure.
Alright. Oh, I was just, I don't know, the appropriate part. It wasn't about appropriate, I don't know. To me, it was just like, no, we decided not to include it.
Well, I thought when we were talking about it yesterday, we settled on saying it would not be appropriate to include it in the recommendations.
and I,
Yeah, cause that was.
But I don't think you wanna say the commission decided to not include it, cause that, the wording doesn't seem right. You
well,
could say they decided not to
And
include it.
and actually, I mean, I'm really
Yeah,
fine
we
leaving it
split
as it is, I might have just been in the mood.
Figure that one out. We
Because that was
not
when I work sometimes I get
Okay,
bullet pointy and the little.
I'll work on
And
it.
honestly, it's fine, 'cause, you know, we decided that it would not be appropriate to include land acknowledgement in the charter at this time, or, I don't know,
I think what's up there now is okay.
perfect.
and I don't know, I'm still bothered by the word appropriate because those of us who feel it's completely appropriate, you know, and again, it was a 5-4 kind of thing, so maybe I'm,
But I think the fives thought it wasn't appropriate.
yes, yeah.
See, and I thought about that, like majority blah blah, but by 5-4, then ultimately
Yeah,
community, so we kind of all carried. So then, and then my next one was just a stab at being like, council, you should do something. Like that was encouraged to do something.
Mhm.
And that this includes true public engagement conversations around Indigenous people, and that the past, present, future,
But doesn't it have to
but I don't know if
include
it.
with Indigenous
Yeah,
people,
yeah, that
not around them?
was problematic.
Cause around sounds like they're
Oh,
not
I
gonna
see
be
what
in the
you mean.
room.
Well, are these edits, did I overkill, like by killing off that last part?
To me, you did. That's just me.
Well, I think what you crossed out is fine to cross out, but I'm just suggesting in the sentence about engagement and conversations, I think it should say this includes true public engagement and conversations among the city, the residents, and Indigenous people, or maybe the city, Indigenous people, and the rest. I mean, you don't wanna leave the Indigenous people out, you don't wanna make them an afterthought, they're kind of critical to the discussion, right? To be respectful.
Heights.
I feel like the parenthetical past, present, and future could maybe be incorporated somehow,
Well, I mean,
not in parenthetical.
or you could leave the last sentences and not even have to say it.
I would be down definitely to leave the last sentence.
This includes true public.
But I think the last sentence is really important to hit home people who came before and those who are still part of our community. And I know Linda didn't like them to be involved in shaping the future, but I think all the residents of Cleveland Heights should be involved in shaping the future, so.
Heights. This was a small cleanup, suggests. Nope. Just
I don't wanna break your
similar
flow here, but,
recognition occur.
and I don't think we need the word occur, suggest similar recognition for Indigenous peoples. Cause occur sounds kind of passive, you know,
I know I don't, but I mean,
okay.
it's 6 to 1 heads
I
up.
would take out occur,
And that's fine, that's what I'm saying, like, meh.
but I think you don't wanna say you're saying public engagement and conversations among Indigenous people. We don't want the Indigenous people to talk among themselves.
Right, that's.
No, but as far as I remembered, I remembered among, so what did you,
Among Indigenous peoples, comma, the city and the residents. Put the Indigenous people first.
and other residents?
Other residents, yeah, because
That
we don't wanna
way,
imply they're not residents.
Could you capitalize city, please?
Ooh.
I got an axe for comma, you can have it.
Instead of saying Cleveland Heights, you're saying city.
Yeah, we always say city in here, we don't say Cleveland Heights.
It's just easier to type.
It's okay, I can clean that stuff up, don't worry about that.
And then in regards to why did I take this out?
You should definitely take out occur.
Other ways to.
You did.
I'm fine leaving that in.
And I wanna change the activities to shaping the future of.
And Drew, excuse me, but I do not want to do that, so
Yes,
let's
we can.
talk it through, but
Yes.
because for me, shaping the future of the city is a huge increase in scope of what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is recognizing, including indigenous people, et cetera, but the idea of shaping the future, where does that belong? It's just it belongs many more places than just this
I wanted
paragraph.
it in place of the activities at the end of the sentence.
Okay, I knew I was doing something wrong.
Hang on a second, Key, once we get this.
Why don't you just say involving them in Cleveland Heights?
That's okay with me.
Just say thought leaders and artists in Cleveland Heights.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
To be in the city.
Part of my feeling is that all residents should be involved in shaping.
I understand
the
that.
future. And this is a place to be more specific about some of the residents who have not been proactively involved in that.
Okay, so is that good?
What would we think about suggesting that they consider, so if we said the commission also suggests the council consider a land acknowledgement, comma, Indigenous Peoples' Day, comma, or other ways.
See, what I liked was not being specific because the impression I got yesterday, for instance, with the mayor and the Columbus Day conversation, I felt like it got way off point because it was like, yes, okay, we don't Columbus Day, cool. Indigenous Day, yeah, it should be discussed. And that's just such a small thing. I don't want to, me personally, I don't want to put a bullseye and then people lock on and like, oh, check that box, I did it. I mean, you can throw it out. I'm just saying that's why my initial, sometimes when you make suggested like this, it's like, no, I really want you to think about the damn thing. And if you come up with the day, cool, but there's like other stuff too. But that's just my,
I had never thought about the Italian.
It's hard for the mayor not to give too much information when asked a question. He was going into a paid holiday for the city, I'm not sure where that
yeah.
Back in Massachusetts, there was a huge Italian population, and boy, did they raise a riot
Oh,
when
I
we
bet
tried
they did.
to move Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples' Day. What's interesting is Columbus Day came when we wanted to make sure that Italian Americans stayed loyal to the United States in the World War.
Is that right?
Yeah.
and just an anecdote that nobody asked for. My favorite was being on a reservation, working there and going, aren't we supposed to be off today? And they're like, no, it's Columbus Day. I went, okay. That was fun.
Graham, I don't think you wanna mention something like Indigenous Peoples' Day because it might be better to have it implemented as a recognition through a month. Right, you know what I mean, so.
Which we do cover, right? I mean, like,
Well, and then also the Indigenous People Day tends to get couched specifically with Columbus Day, and there might be more to it, or on Thanksgiving, there's
Right.
other.
well, for example, the city of Cleveland recognizes a date in August that corresponds to the United Nations recognition of Indigenous peoples worldwide.
So are we good with this then?
I think
How
so.
about where you've got Chris right now and other ways rather than or? Because we want to keep it open. Would that be okay?
And others?
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Consider an acknowledgement statement in other ways, you know, it doesn't have to be an either or.
That's a good call to agree.
We might even want to eliminate that entirely because of the structure of the sentence. We have an and, the sentence continues
And.
after some parenthetical commas.
Oh, there you go, perfect.
Other way.
Concision, yeah.
Indigenous people who are so, and Oxford, comma, that the city proactively involved.
But where's the, oh,
That's right here.
Yes.
You know what, and we'll just in case. Just to be clear.
Nice.
Gee.
Cool. This is looking good. One final nitpick is that indigenous peoples, I think, refers to like large, like collectively different tribes and nations. And I think here we're using it like maybe we shouldn't capitalize that very, like on that line the cursor is already on, that people, I don't know.
So when I've seen other stuff,
Yeah.
I was glancing at, indigenous was capitalized, people was not.
Yeah, so I think when you're talking about indigenous peoples, you should be capitalizing the P, but when it's just like people,
Oh, yeah, there's a.
because then you're not talking about all of the tribes and nations, but rather residents.
Yeah, individuals essentially.
Right.
And to make that even clearer, in the third line, acknowledgement statement, other ways to honor the indigenous peoples who came before us, put a the there.
Well, yesterday you said to take the out.
When we're talking about,
So in the fifth line, do you want similar recognition for indigenous people or the indigenous peoples?
No, indigenous peoples.
You mean the third line?
You know,
Oh, you're saying up here among the,
No.
Well, do we want the or don't we want the?
But
Because I thought I had it, then you asked me to take it out.
I think I did.
Yeah,
and what I'm saying is the third line from the
sometimes it
bottom.
does.
oh, bottom, okay, cause I'm like, I'm on the third line, okay.
The third line's right though, right?
Third line from the bottom, acknowledgement statement, other ways to honor the indigenous peoples who came before us.
Well, we might,
To me, that's, I mean, it's six of one, half dozen the other.
But
I mean,
somehow honor indigenous people sounds a little dismissive, you know, it's like I wanna be a little specific because we're talking about the indigenous peoples who came before us, not indigenous peoples kind of collective out there cloud of witness kind of thing.
so we could say to honor the indigenous people.
Yeah.
And then do we capitalize the P though? It's like.
No, then we don't.
Okay, alrighty,
very confusing.
I think we're being consistent.
yeah.
And the final question would be in that sentence in the red up towards the top, would we want to make that indigenous peoples or indigenous people? I don't know.
I would suggest that we should make it consistent and either always use people's capped or not. Because otherwise people are gonna read this and think we didn't proofread it.
Well, it's just
It'd
like,
be very confusing.
And I like the capital I, the lowercase people.
we could say right there, residents, indigenous residents, or I don't know. I see what you're saying about being consistent,
Well,
but I do
see-
think it is distinct.
And I wanna keep it away, cause there might be
just too
indigenous
subtle.
people who have history here who would participate in the conversation, but they're not residents.
Yeah.
But it also captures indigenous residents, cause we say other residents, so that it's,
So let's just, if you start at the top,
Mhm.
where are we using indigenous people with initial caps or not? Cause I don't wanna have this discussion tomorrow morning. I wanna, no, I mean, no, back down, the beginning of this section.
Eventually.
Well,
Right
there we go.
I feel like we are consistent now with no article in front of indigenous peoples, but with the article
But
in
is
front of,
indigenous peoples both initial capped or just indigenous is initial capped?
I think it's both in this context. But then when we start
But it's
referring,
singular, it's.
because this is referring to
Oh,
the tribes and nations as a collective rather than
Would this be
individual
capital?
indigenous folks.
I don't understand the distinction. So when we get below the quote, what are we using then? Indigenous peoples is initial
Well,
cap?
that's in displacement, that's not people,
And is this indigenous people now?
peoples.
Well, no,
No, this is
Well-
capital,
I don't think it should be the there either.
Well, that's your draft, so
Dang. You got me there.
Oh, I think the is good there.
Shoot.
Indigenous peoples including, because that's a collective group.
Yeah,
What was
the
that?
indigenous people suffered.
Who are traditional stewards? Oh boy.
There was something up here that
I think
indigenous members,
I think that's lowercase,
yeah, I think so too, yeah, but not people.
I do think that that's consistent because in this case, we are referring to the specific indigenous peoples
Right.
occupying this area.
I think we made it, anytime we say peoples, we capitalize both, anytime we say people, we capitalize just the indigenous.
where do we use just singular people?
And
in the last paragraph.
yeah, I think it's just the last. People, oh, here we go. The first paragraph, second from the bottom,
Wow.
while also recognizing the indigenous people living in Cleveland
Yeah,
Heights.
that should be that way.
And then indigenous peoples, indigenous people.
So in that first, at the end of the first paragraph, we're saying indigenous people, both lowercase?
No, indigenous capital, peoples lower. And don't ask me.
But in
to
the
explain
line above it, we're using indigenous peoples plural with both initial caps.
You're saying one's both proper, is that right, Graham? And then-
I think so.
I do not know, we're out of my realm. I was hooked on phonics and then I stopped.
I think it's a real problem to keep alternating how we're doing this.
I don't think it's gonna be a big issue for most people. And I don't know, Graham, if you want to contact.
I think there really is a distinction, Linda.
There's a real preference.
It's so subtle though, Harriet, that people are gonna look at it and say, why are they consistently capitalizing it?
Why is the distinction between all indigenous peoples and individual indigenous people?
Indigenous person.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, in one case, the people who live in Cleveland Heights, right? In
So
other
if we're
cases,
talking about the
all
people who live in
tribes.
Cleveland Heights, why aren't we talking about indigenous initial cap people living in Cleveland Heights? It's a group of them, right? It's not just one person.
It's,
We don't know.
And is worth spending more time on.
Well, I think that
there's a group of.
I'm okay with this going to draft and it says draft. And then getting it solidified, hell or high water. Cause like I just looked up, the UN uses indigenous peoples in their UN declarations on the rights of indigenous peoples.
Okay, but my read on this is that in the context, we're using the right punctuation, okay? And I'm just one voice. But I do have one suggestion I wanna make that's not showing up on the screen right now. And I think it's not showing up on the screen, if you can go down just a little bit further.
Is that
Where is it that it says the commission would like to encourage council?
Last
There we
paragraph.
go, got it.
Last paragraph, okay. So to me, that is not as clear direct as I would like. I would say the commission encourages council, period. I mean, I would just say the commission encourages council. We're not, we'd like to, but you are. We're encouraging you to do this.
No, I think that's great.
Absolutely. A little clearer, so.
To consider.
Yeah, to consider.
No.
Good,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we all tend to write in a restrained manner, but in this case, it's like, we took so much out and we didn't put it into the charter recommendations. Let's be clear, we want you to do this.
Absolutely.
Alright. So Jonathan, just email that whole thing to me, would you please?
I will do it.
I'll move that we, as a draft report, we accept these changes to the land acknowledgement part of the report.
I wanna just suggest that we haven't voted on any other changes in the report, so I think we have consensus that we've all agreed on this, we don't need to take a vote on
Okay,
this.
all right,
Cause we don't have time to take a vote on every paragraph in the report.
okay.
Okay, well, that's a good thing done, alright,
Just to be clear that there's no objections to
No
including this in the
objections.
report.
does anybody have any other comments about the report?
I don't have any.
I'd just like to say one thing. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but to me, we have this draft and we're real close and we need to publish something. It certainly looks good enough for me. After the meeting and after we finish all our changes because of the meeting, I will say that maybe I'll do it with you or whatever, but I do think we'll go through it and make sure that yes, what we actually ended up with does read well, okay? Okay, and that's fine. I'm just saying, but I think it's unnecessary effort. It'd be unnecessary effort right now because we just want to be at that point where the content is firm. And then we can say, are we stating it properly?
So let me just point out that after the meeting is on the 21st. So we have May 21st meeting with the public. And then we have a May 22nd meeting of the commission, which is a 2-hour meeting. A regular 2-hour meeting.
A
And
regular
if-
short term.
if you, no, I'm seriously saying, if people wanna go through the report,
Yeah,
paragraph by paragraph, we need another Saturday meeting, because we're not gonna finish it in 2 hours. That's too much.
Well,
Well, you were saying that you maybe, and Stephanie would do.
well, here, I'm sorry, so, are you saying that any change we make in order to make sure that it's as clear as possible, each and every one of those needs to be reviewed by the commission?
Well, at some point, people are gonna wanna look at it, and I'm happy to sit down with whoever wants to go down, sit down and go over it. I'm just saying that a 2-hour meeting on the 22nd isn't gonna do it.
I don't think we wanna do that in a meeting.
But that was and that's what I brought up
Not quorum.
yesterday, and we just not a quorum, but the thing is at the end of the day, the report has to be approved, so in theory, we have to have all agreed that we've read through everything and there are no more changes. So the difficult part I would think is like if Stephanie emails Linda changes and I email Linda and we conflict, what choice does she, I mean, we could
No,
say
we
to her
have to sit
best
down,
friend-
we have to sit down and go over changes.
Yeah, so it's how do we do that?
Yeah, so my question is, when do you wanna do that? If you and Stephanie and I wanna sit down and go over them, anybody else who wants to join, when do you wanna do that?
So we don't have a meeting scheduled for the 22nd. That would be
Yeah,
the
we do.
third Wednesday of the month, or
That's our regular
Sorry,
meeting.
that would be the fourth, well, right now is the third Wednesday.
I think we already had one scheduled though, I think that was on one of our polls.
okay. It's not in my calendar, but
Nope, not on mine either.
My calendar.
Okay, well,
It will be.
check your calendar.
Well, because we have to have a meeting after the public meeting to discuss what the public tells us, that's why we have it.
Sense.
If we're gonna turn everything over to council by the 31st,
And going off of Lee's suggestion was also we could just say, hey, 4 people, whoever, y'all cool with it, awesome, that's the final, everyone reads it, are there changes then at that final meeting?
Yeah.
Not going through line by line, it's a, here's what it is,
Do you like
yes
it
or no, yeah, exactly, and not doing this. But then we could pull it off in 2 hours.
probably.
And just, I'm also gonna assume that whatever public input we get next Tuesday is not going to be the use of commas, splitting infinitives, that sort of thing. So if people want to meet before next Tuesday to do these little language cleanup things, that's a possibility as well.
We could do that too. Yeah, we could do that too, but I'm just suggesting it's gonna be a long meeting, so when would you like to do it? That's my question. I'm pretty
I'd rather
flexible.
not do it May 22nd, cause I have a conflict.
Well, you're talking about post public
I'm
meeting.
talking about the meeting to go over the report and make whatever cleanup changes people wanna suggest.
And my
Not the final approval. You're talking about
It will
Correct.
lead into the final approval.
Yes.
okay.
And
But it also will include the suggestions from the public.
No, what I
So
said
maybe
was,
we-
could we stop? What I said was, the cleanup of the language does not gonna be including the proposals from the public, because I don't think they're gonna be talking about misplaced commas or this or that sort of thing. So the little language cleanups, we could do that before next Tuesday if we wanna get it out of the way so that we're not backing more and more meetings up after next Tuesday. That's all I'm saying, the little language cleanup things, not incorporating public responses, but just doing the little touches that make it flow better, that can be done anytime after tonight.
I mean, so basically what I'm doing is language cleanup, stuff like that. There's a little bit of restructuring a sentence because it's wordy or doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'm making sure that it's, the thing that I think we all would need to look at is, did I change the meaning of the sentence by cleaning it up? I'm trying my best not to do that, but obviously everyone would
And
need
that's
to
fine,
look at it.
you can give your comments, but the point is, we have to sit down and go over them, and the question on the table is, when do you wanna do that?
So you sent out a doodle poll in April for preferred times for the meeting following the public meeting. From those results, which I'm looking at right now, we selected Wednesday, May 29th as the time that everyone could attend that 6 to 8 p.m. meeting. The only one who did not vote and would be Greg.
That's, yeah, I have a conflict on the
The
20th.
revenge of the doodle poll.
We had 4 people available on Saturday the 25th, 7 on Tuesday the 28th.
Oh,
We could do that.
Could do Tuesday the 28th
well, that,
from 6 to 8.
that's probably better than,
But if we do, so you're saying the 28th instead of the 22nd?
Well, we just didn't, that was never on the calendar, right? I mean, that was never.
Okay, well, I could have made an error there, but so then but that still is separate and apart from the meeting to go over the document for any changes people wanna make. So when do you
Right.
wanna do that?
Can I ask who's supposed to be at that meeting to
Well, I would be at it. Who else wants to be at it? You wanna
So-
be at it, Stephanie wants to be involved.
So could we do it with, when there would be, if I'm understanding what Leah's saying, you could have 4 people do this and it's not a recorded meeting. If 4 of us did it, right? So if 3 of us did it, we could
Is
do
that
that.
correct?
Yeah, if you're less than a quorum and you're not, this isn't like a committee or anything.
That could be like
reports
virtual
back.
too, right?
That could be virtual,
Yeah, you could be virtual as long as you're still under.
as long as it's not 5 of us.
So that would mean 3 of us could work together. We could do the kind of polishing that we are concerned about ensuring. We could do that on the version that comes out, that gets posted, right? Because the changes that we would make after that, after the 21st, we can make sure those are polished the first time we make them, right? So the rest of it we can polish up in the meantime. So it removes the crunch from the work that we're doing. And if the 3 of us did it, we just choose a time that's good for the 3 of us to do it.
My daughter's birthday party is on Saturday. Can't do,
Just tell us when you can do it.
does it have to be done before the 21st?
No.
Okay,
No, it doesn't.
oh, then,
We're gonna use the version that's
Yeah.
posted, and then we can do it anytime after it's posted, which is,
right, and that's why I was asking earlier, should I stop working from the April document?
I would say you should.
Cause I thought we said I could, and we just integrate it
Well,
earlier,
if you
so I'm
did.
confused now.
Jonathan, what
Well, you could.
would be best for Stephanie to work from if she's doing the
She should
little?
use the newest, but what I was
You
just trying to communicate was the one you're using is not substantially different from if you're only
Right.
partially through. So if you can move those into the newest one, great.
But if not, it's not,
Well, I mean,
Well, you
then
like
you
on
would,
page 5?
yeah,
Just start in the new one on page 6.
there you go,
okay.
cause you didn't change anything from the first 5 pages.
No, I don't remember, but you
We
know,
can look at it, we can
Doesn't
look at what you did in the
matter,
first 5 pages.
It's the ranked choice voting, for instance, is drastically different between the 13th and today. The
Yeah.
first 5 pages, not so much.
But you're working with the charter at this point, right, not the report, or what are you?
No, it's just a report.
The report, okay, no problem. All right,
I have no idea what I missed though.
So when do you wanna do it?
we continue talking about when they're gonna meet to do this polishing.
Mm.
And apparently we're having a meeting on the 28th now.
28th?
Are we having a meeting on the 28th?
On Memorial Day?
That would be the
28th is
27th.
not
Oh, sorry, it's my birthday, I get confused.
Happy
28th is your
Yeah.
birthday?
This is quite a month, you're graduating and
Mm-hmm.
getting to be 30.
42,
You don't look a day over 30.
It only gets better.
that works for me.
Speak for yourself.
28th.
That was the doodle poll.
Well, we need to schedule, I mean, people need to schedule their calendars.
Well, I thought it was just the 3 of us.
It is the 3 of us.
Okay, can I send an email?
I think it's the 3 of us. I don't know, does anybody else wanna get involved in this?
Well, so we're talking about 2 meetings right now, because there's the meeting for all of us to approve a
That's the one
final
on the
draft
28th.
on the 28th.
Okay, there's nothing happening on the 22nd, I just need to be crystal clear.
Nothing you all have to be at.
That's what, okay, we are all at is the 28th.
The 21st ideally and the 28th.
Okay, got it.
The other alternative is that if you wanna just send your changes and Guy and I can go over them, that's okay too.
That's
It's up
fine,
to you.
I just can't give you a definite answer right this second because every time I do something, I need to coordinate with my husband to
Yeah, that's
figure
fine.
out my life and my child, so
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for you right now.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I won't get back to you in a timely manner.
Can I suggest, I actually like that suggestion quite a bit. If you wanna go through top to bottom,
That's fine.
okay, then you tell us when you think you're gonna be able to get that, and then we'll agree on a meeting someplace at some time to review that, and then from there we'll have what we would consider the version that we would ask people to look at and say it's done.
That is fine.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's fine.
Any comments from
I
anybody?
have a separate question. So, on the 28th, we will deal with the comments from the 21st.
Well, it'll be, the 28th is when we're approving the final report and final charter to go to council, right?
Yeah, so we can't use that to discuss what happens at the public meeting.
Oh, yeah.
It's too late.
So when I was thinking discuss, I guess in my head it was, it's in the report now. Do you wanna change that language in this report? And then that would be the discussion, but it wouldn't be a thoughtful.
Well, but there could be,
It could be
you know,
ramifications.
it's possible that at the meeting,
Mhm.
somebody will raise some fabulous idea that we didn't think about. We'll say, well, yeah, we ought to change that, or we ought to add that. So we have to allow time, you know, in good faith, we're having this meeting to get the input, so we have to have a meeting to consider the input.
When does it, so I know we need to be done by the 31st, do we like melt on the 31st in terms of the council because they didn't extend the date?
Not entirely clear. We have to have our report turned in by the 31st.
Got it.
But the council's resolution or ordinance or whatever it was that established us didn't say we dissolved.
Okay.
And Tony was supposed to be checking with Bill Hanna about that.
So how about if we do meet, I mean, we know you can't meet on the 25th, we could meet to go over the changes on the 25th.
The what?
Which
I mean,
changes?
the public,
25th, what day is that?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Well, which
Is that the
changes?
Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm out of town.
We
Yeah.
respond to the public input. on the
Jonathan's
25th.
out of town.
Oh,
So did the 22nd not work for anybody?
It doesn't work for me.
Okay. How about
I'll
the
be out of
23rd?
Hmm?
How about the 23rd?
Out of town.
I can do the 23rd.
What did you say, Jonathan?
Which
I'm out of town from the 23rd to the 27th.
This is the
We
response.
need to have a meeting to discuss what happens at the public meeting.
Is it, are you
Well, on
out
the
of town?
23rd, it would be a night meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are
then
you out of town on the 23rd?
no, because I'll be traveling. A morning meeting I could do.
Well, some people have day jobs.
I normally do, I would just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I
I have to
mean,
be
also, if
respectful of
it's just-
people who have day
if
jobs.
it's just me,
Wait a
you
minute,
know.
who does have a day, you have a day job?
I
What?
also have
What
to
if we
do
just, instead of just kind of throwing these out, what if we did another doodle poll? And-
Well, we just don't have much time, that's why I'm like the 28th and like the 29th.
And somebody's busy the 29th. Is it you? Somebody?
I'm busy the 29th, unless, well, I have a meeting at 5 o'clock on the 29th that will be over, I mean, I could start a meeting at 6:30 on the 29th.
Let's do that.
And to me, that would be the button-up final, if you bring up a whole lot of stuff, you will not leave.
That's instead of the
Indeed.
28th.
So the 28th would be to incorporate any possible public feedback that you
Right.
feel is essential.
And the 29th is speak now or forever hold your peace.
When you will.
And if for some magical reason we're awesome on the 28th, we can always cancel the 29th.
That's true, we
That's true.
could. We could.
So if we-
What happened?
If we block out the
6:30?
28th from 6 to 8 and the
6:30?
29th from 6:30 to 8:30, that would be sufficient?
I think so.
Just
And
wanna
we may
write it down
get
properly.
away with less.
But you said
There may not be a ton of public.
I just sent out the 28th, I'll send out the 29th.
Oh, okay, perfect, thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your patience in this. I know it's a lot and we've been spending a lot of time in these meetings and I think it's been pretty productive. We've gotten things done and done it in a way that everybody's still friends, so that's good. And I appreciate your diligence.
Still,
And we're almost finished.
Well, and thank you, Linda, for going through the documents and putting it together and the structure. You filled in gaps. I know that I couldn't have, so I appreciate it.
Let's thank Lee for all his help. He's been fabulous. He's been
Let's give
fabulous.
him another draft to change.
He's been doing a great job.
More
All
minutes.
right, so do we have anything else to discuss before we adjourn?
I just wanna say that our pre-registration's not working terribly well this time, cause we had 3 a week and a half ago and we have 3 today.
Okay.
Is there anything we needed to cover about the 21st?
Yeah, just, I wanna make sure that when Lee has a chance, he gets in touch with the library, that they know that the third room we added is in the same contract kind of thing, that the divider won't be up, because they know that we want all three. It's, settler colonialism, what can I say?
Right, and do we have 2 standing microphones, Lee?
Library.
I'm sorry?
I would have to ask the library.
The city doesn't have standing microphones?
It's Steve Parker. Well, it's their system for sound, so it has to be the library's microphones.
So how are we recording it?
Video,
Through their system?
no, through Steve's system.
So doesn't he have to be there anyway?
Yeah.
I don't understand the microphone thing. So is he gonna talk to the library about whether they have the microphones?
I'll ask the library if they have microphone, that their sound system, microphone will have to be used in their sound system, so I don't think Steve can just bring microphones.
You wanna be sure they're compatible with their sound system, in other words.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
ask them.
Okay, all right.
So we did discuss that standing, and decided that standing mics on each side of the room would be better than a movable mic, handheld mic.
Yeah, I talked to Lee about that. I talked to him about people holding the mic cap, that's. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind calling or having Steve call, because I don't know what to ask them, you know, technology is not really my strong suit. All right, so are the flyers all up?
I've got them up and I've got up
I've
and.
still got mine to do.
I put one in Stone Oven. It's a hot place.
Harry, let's
But then
just
there's
talk,
like
you
a
need help
ton
on
of
us. Let's get them up. So I'll send people.
I'll work on some of the other
Yeah,
places.
and you could all share them with your, with your
Yeah.
friends and
No
contact
copies of
lists, and I asked city council people to share them with people and they said they would.
And I saw these posted on Nextdoor.
Yeah, thank you,
Oh.
Pete.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you, actually, I deserve credit for that, because when people make comments,
Oh boy.
it just reminds you of the worst possible things you can
I
think of.
know, what, is it even good to
Isn't it
put it on
just
next door
terrible?
because
The
it
lowest
invites-
common denominator.
it invites
It's just
horrible.
terrible.
Did you get comments on it?
Yeah, 3 ugly comments. Sorry, I don't wanna be complaining, it's okay, people are people.
I'm sorry.
You know, no, it's okay.
Oh, no,
It's just like,
What
next
did
door
they
is
say?
toxic.
It's
oh, they
bad.
just said, well, can
The
you fix
toxic
potholes? Well, let's make sure we have the pronouns correct.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? It's like, wow, where's your head?
Yeah, all right,
You know.
well, I hope you don't waste time responding.
I don't. No, actually.
Terminally online.
I'm sorry?
That's it, terminally online. That's the
I'm
term.
sorry for that aggravation.
It's done.
Well, it's 8:00. Might I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion we move, adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
Everybody.
Have a good evening.
thank you.